Dizzy Gillespie is my mentor, as he was for a person I didn't mention in my band, and that's Benny Golson, the saxophonist, who was there and was also writing. We both played with Dizzy at different times and learned from him, as did all of the performers that played with Dizzy. Dizzy was a master teacher. He was a very funny guy, as everybody knows, by the name Dizzy, but he was also a very, very serious musician and a genius. He knew so much about harmony, and he's the one, as I mentioned, and when he came to my house, that sat me down and said, man, you got to learn how to play the keyboard. And he started me playing chords and harmonies on the piano. And I still do that almost every day now. As a composer, it's necessary to be able to play.
You hear his words in your head.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you need that. And then his ability to improvise and change his solos around was phenomenal. When we joined Dizzy's band, which is the next, or no, it's the second band after being with Howard McGee. There's one before that I'll talk about.
This was in what year when you joined Dizzy's band?
I joined Dizzy's band in 1949.
Okay.
And having been with a band by the name of Gil Fuller. Gil Fuller was Dizzy's arranger in the heyday of Dizzy's first recordings, like Things to Come and One Bass Hitting Off. Gil Fuller's the arranger on there. He and Dizzy had some kind of falling out about money or something, whatever. And he started a band. And I played in that band in New York. And we recorded. It was a challenge to Dizzy's band. After Gil fell out with Dizzy, he wanted to start a band and challenge Dizzy's band. He had Art Blakey on drums, Milt Jackson, who had been with Dizzy's big band before, and Sahib Shahab and Billy Mitchell, my friend, was in, and some Muslims. A lot of musicians in New York were becoming Muslims at that time. And we recorded and had a battle of music. This is a prelude to being in Dizzy's big band. I had to go back to this, because we played at the Audubon Ballroom. You know what the Audubon
Yes.
Ballroom is. Well, a battle of the bands with Dizzy's band. Dizzy had been to California and made a big smash with his big band. And I had moved to New York and was playing with Gil Fuller's band here in New York. And at this, we recorded, and he wrote a piece, Gil wrote a piece, a fast minor piece called The Scene Changes, trying to get back to Dizzy, at Dizzy. Because Dizzy had the piece Things to Come, which was a fast minor piece, a very startling, flashy piece that's still ahead of its time. So Gil wrote this in a piece called The Scene Changes, which I was featured on alto. And anyway, I think that was the impetus that night that we had this so-called battle against Dizzy's band. We didn't win. Dizzy's band was still very strong, and we were very good though, because this is one of the arrangers from Dizzy's band.
That must have been exciting to see, though.
It was, and that is a good time for me, and I'll get back to the bad time, but a good time because Dizzy saw me in this band again after we had met in Philly when he had his band in Philly. A couple of years had gone by from 46 to 48, 49 now. So that's when two of Dizzy's alto players left. John Brown and Howard Johnson was the lead alto player. And at that time, Dizzy in 49, around September, October, asked me to join the band. He also, at the same time, asked Coltrane, who was in my band, and we both, so then Coltrane and I became Dizzy's alto players.
Two alto saxophones.
Yeah, because Train hadn't switched full-time to tenor.
Yes.
He had played a few gigs around Philly on tenor, but when Dizzy needed alto, which he had played in the Great Lakes Navy Band, alto and clarinet, then he joined, and we joined around a month apart or a couple weeks apart. So now Dizzy's taking the nucleus of my band, basically, because he's already had my piano player, Ken Gates, before, and now Train and I, and Paul Gonsalves was on tenor, who later played with Duke, you know, and became very famous also. But Train and I were playing altos. And we, back to the story, and back to the story is, what happens is that Dizzy would be playing these, when I got off the story, it was about his improvisation.
Yes.
When we were touring with the big band in 1949 and part of 50, Train and I were sitting together and we'd be observing and watching Dizzy, you know, and every time he'd get a break on a song, which is a space where the band stops and he makes a break and comes in, he would play a different break every night. And Train would say, "Dang, Jim, did you hear that?" And I said, "Yeah, man." And we were just marveling at this creativity. And we stayed in the band, the big band stayed together, of which I have the picture that's going to be shown too, of in the Apollo Theater with Dizzy with the big band. And later he broke it up into a small group, and I think I have a picture of that too, with Jim when he kept Train, and Train went to tenor. And I stayed on alto.
I see.
And Percy. And by that time, Specs Wright had joined, which was my drummer in my band.
Yes.
The way that happened is that we played the Earl Theater in Philadelphia, the Dizzy Gillespie big band. And the guy who was playing drums at that time, named Teddy Stewart, was going with Dinah Washington.
Oh.
And Teddy was one of the guys who got me in trouble the night that we played the Battle of Music at Audubon Ballroom.
Audubon, yes.
But Teddy wanted to quit, and did, in the middle of a week's engagement in the Earl Theater. He quit and went on the road with his lady, Dinah Washington, which didn't last long anyway. But
you sound like you're happy about that.
No, but knowing Dinah and her rep, you know, she was pretty hard to get along with. But about that, when Teddy Stewart said, "Man, I'm quitting," and he left the band, and we got these shows to play and everything, I said, "Dizzy, you can get my Specs Wright." So he said, "Well, get him." And he lived in South Philly where I live. So I went down Specs' house and got him, and he came up and rehearsed the show and played everything, and he got with Dizzy also.
Yes.
So that's 4 members of my band that end up 5 now that end up with Dizzy's band.